Hello guys, myself Pawan and you're watching Optimistic Coder, and in this video we are going to discuss about arrays. So let's get started. So in this video we are going to cover up all these topics in which we will be discussing what is the need of an array, what is the difference between variables and array, and how to define an array. Plus we will also discuss advantages and disadvantages of array. So let's move on with the first topic, that is why do we need an array. So before understanding why do we need an array, let's understand a scenario. So for example, if you take a scenario in which you want to store some value, what you will be doing? You will try to store that value inside a variable, and that's it, job is done. If I say you have to store two different values, you will end up declaring two different variables and you will store two different values. And if I say you have to store three different values, then you will end up declaring three different variables. That's fine. If you are storing three different values, three different variables, it's fine. But if I say that you have to store 1000 values, then if you go with the same approach, then you will be end up declaring 1000 variables and you will be storing it 1000 times. So this approach is really tedious, and this is not practical also, and even it is not optimal. The code readability will be very low. So how can we go into a better approach? So there we have an array. So in case of arrays, instead of writing this thing that 1000 times you are writing the variable and then we are declaring it 1000 times, instead of that we could actually write just one line of code in which you will be having just one variable name and you will mention a size, and that size means you can store that much data. If you try to store 1000 values, it is able to store 1000 because it has 1000 given as size. So because of array, it's actually helping us to reduce the code, to improve the code readability and to store multiple values in it. Now let's move on to the next one, that what is an array and how we can define it generally. So here, for example, I'm taking an array of variable name as my array, and this array is going to have 8 segments, or we can say 8 as a maximum size, which means it is able to store 8 different values and it has been segmented equally. These segments are being labeled with some indexes, and that we call as index value. And always in arrays, index will start with 0 and it will end up size minus 1, where your size is here 8, so 8 minus 1 is 7, or if you go it sequentially, incrementing one value by moving on, so you will see that it starts with 0, then it's 1, and it's so on and it goes till the last segment, and that is your 7. So we can store 8 different values in that. One question that you should think here is, how can I fetch individual value? For example, you want to fetch value d4 in this array. How will you do it? Because you have just one variable name, and just writing that variable name will not help us out. If you want to fetch some value from the array, and that should be a specific value, then you should mention the index inside the square bracket. So you just need to write your variable name of that array, and then you just need to mention the index value inside the square bracket, and you will get that particular value inside. So if you want to define an array, you could say it is an indexed collection of fixed number of homogeneous data element. Now if you break it into 3 parts, that is indexed collection, it means whatever array you make, whatever the size the array is having, it will have a collection of indexes. Okay, and it is an indexed collection, and the size that you mention in the array at the time of array creation is fixed, and you cannot change at the runtime. That's why we say it's a fixed number. And in case of homogeneous data elements, it means that whenever you try to declare an array, you declare it with some data type. That could be an integer, it could be a string, it could be a double. So you should stick to that data type, and you can only store that value or that type of value inside the array. So if you have declared an array of an integer type, you cannot store a value that is you cannot store a double value, you cannot store a string value. That's not possible in array. So this is the basic, a brief definition of array. If you understand the pictorial representation, then you will easily able to define an array. Now let's move on to the advantage and disadvantages of it. In case of advantage, you have two things, that is, it can store multiple values and it improves your code readability, as we have discussed. In case of disadvantages, it has fixed size and it cannot store a heterogeneous type of data, which means in the first one, that is the fixed size, as I said, at the runtime you cannot increase or decrease the size. So let's take a real-time example which will help you understand better. So let's consider there is an egg tray of size 6 where you can store 6x, and if you are trying to store more than that, okay, and it's not possible at runtime. For example, if you bought 10x and if you are trying to store it, then you will be able to store only 6x and rest 4x cannot be stored in that egg tray. So in the other scenario, you can take that if one fine day you gone and you bought just 2x, then the rest of the 4 spaces will be wasted. Same thing happens with array also. So if you are declaring an array of some particular size, at runtime you cannot increase or decrease the size so that you can store more values than specified size, or you could end up storing less values and you will be wasting a lot of space. So that's the disadvantage that we have in array. The second one is it cannot store heterogeneous types of data. As we have discussed that it can only store homogeneous type of data. So if you are declaring an array of integer type, of string type, of double, then you can only store that particular value or that particular type of value. For example, if you are declaring it with an integer, you can only store an integer value. You cannot store a integer, string, double, float. You cannot store different values in a array. So these are the two disadvantages that we have in array. Now, how can we overcome these advantages? There is another concept called as collections, which is used in Java, which is an advanced topic, and in that particular concept you have actually overcome this disadvantages, because in case of collections it doesn't have fixed size, and also you can store different types of value. So that's all in this videos, guys. I hope you like the video. If you liked it, please hit like and subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to leave a comment below. See you in the next video. Till then, bye bye.